This presentation will generally conclude most of the material in this particular PowerPoint section. So we're covering classical, neoclassical, and positive school perspectives. So we've already discussed rational choice and deterrence, and then now we're going to finish up with routine activities theory, which still falls under the classical and neoclassical perspectives. So let me get to our place for today, which is routine activities. So routine activities theory was proposed by Cohen and Felsen, and initially this was introduced primarily as a theory of victimization. So instead of it really being proposed to explain why people engage in crime, it was almost proposed to explain why people become victims of crime. But even still, even though it was primarily proposed for that, it's a very popular theory that explains why people engage in crime too. So really, they were proposing that, and routine activities in general suggest that involvement in crime or experiencing victimization is really based on specific things that happen to occur at the same time simultaneously, and that essentially produces a situation that's conducive to crime. And so it's really focused on offenders' lifestyles and their circumstance in a specific time and place that ultimately can influence someone's involvement in crime, or their experience of victimization, if you're looking at it initially as the victimization theory. So this falls under the classical and neoclassical approach still, because it somewhat suggests that people are rational in their choice to commit crime, quote unquote, right? So this idea being the three things that have to occur, or that have to happen at the same exact time for a crime to occur, for someone to be victimized, is that you have to have a motivated offender. So that would suggest that the motivated offender being someone who wants to engage in crime, they're motivated to engage in crime for whatever reason, but that's aspect being the person's choice. They're motivated in that sense. The second thing being a suitable target. So there has to be, and this is specifically thinking about victimization to occur, that there has to be someone to victimize. So it could be, a physical person, meaning a violent crime. It could be a instrumental crime, which is one that's motivated financially, and so maybe someone's purse is around, or it could be a building wherein someone's engaging in burglary, and so the target could be an actual person or a place, right? Depending on the type of crime. And then the third thing that has to happen all at these these same times is that there has to be a lack of a guardian. So in other words, meaning that there cannot be someone there who can stop the crime from happening. So if you have all three of these elements, having a motivated offender, having a target, and then also not having someone to stop, an authority figure, a guardian, someone to stop the crime, that ultimately is the perfect combination of things for crime and victimization to occur. So in this figure over here, we see these three items overlapping, and the suggestion being is that in this section where all three things overlap is where crime occurs. And so in general, this is supposed to explain crimes and victimization in a way that is very focused on the situation as opposed to the offender themselves. So this theory really, and its proposals as to how to reduce crime rates, focus on changing situations and things as opposed to people. So it really focuses on the two aspects, the suitable target and lack of a guardian, for proposing how to reduce crime as opposed to the offender. For an example of how this is relevant to real life, my husband and I were on a walk one day and someone had their garage door open and it was full of new items and packaging, like flat screens, TVs, and things like that. And in that particular instant, there was a suitable target, meaning there were new items, readily available in someone's garage, and a lack of a guardian. There was the homeowner didn't appear to be around or anything. There were no other people. It didn't look like they had any security cameras. And my husband and I had discussed that that was a perfect example of routine activities. Had there been a motivated offender around, because the other two aspects of the theory were fulfilled, that it would have been easily explained in routine activities if a crime had occurred and there was a theft. And, you know, in that particular instance, my husband and I were obviously not motivated offenders, but had we been, that those three items had converged at that same time, that could ultimately result in crime happening. Another perfect example of this is I followed the town of Hamburg on Facebook, the police department, and they had posted, this was recently, just last week, they had posted about the different, they post occasionally about different crimes that are occurring in the area. And so they had posted recently saying that they were investigating a series of unauthorized use of motor vehicles that were occurring overnight. And they were saying that there was a surge in stolen vehicles. And they write a few things. So crimes of this type tend to occur in random clusters and demonstrate willingness on the part of thieves to prowl any residential area that they are likely to find unrestricted access to people's vehicles. And then they describe some other circumstances of that. But in some cases, so they note, in some cases, the vehicle's keys or electronic fobs are left inside the vehicle, permitting easy opportunity. And then they go on to say that vehicles are very rarely actually broken into, but it's that they're crimes of opportunity. And so this aligns perfectly with routine activities because it suggests that, one, having a motivated offender, people going around, maybe with that purpose in mind, suitable targets, meaning cars are unlocked, the key fobs are inside, lack of a guardian being that there's not someone around to observe or intervene. So all three of these things were converging to make it crimes of opportunity. And so that's, I thought, was a perfect example of routine activities theory. Now, as we actually focus on routine activities theory or reflect on it, there's some limitations that exist. And I was mentioning previously that by and large, this theory and its proposals to reduce crime are really focused on the two last aspects of the circumstances. So it really focuses on eliminating a suitable target and then introducing capable guardians. And so even though the theory itself does focus on some practical applications, that it doesn't necessarily want to focus on changing offenders' motivation to commit crime. That really, the theory is proposed more of a situational explanation for crime, and so then for us to reduce crime, we need to change the situation. So that's one of the limitations of that. And then another limitation of the theory, that it doesn't necessarily explain who or what a capable guardian is. So there's many ways in which we could define guardianship. You know, it could be an adult, it could be, you know, a law enforcement personnel, it could be security cameras, perhaps it's a dog or a sign that says, you know, that there are dogs on the premises, you know, something like that. So there's a lot of ways in which capable guardians can be interpreted and what that really means. And so that's one limitation of this particular theory, and thinking about how do we define that, and then what or who is actually a capable guardian. And then additionally, some researchers suggest that it could be seen as victim blaming, because we're putting, when you specifically think of it as a victimization theory, it's putting some of almost the responsibility of experiencing victimization on the victim. So suggesting that they were maybe doing something that made them a suitable target. So for instance, you know, not locking your car doors, right? That's an example of a behavior that the victim perhaps engaged in, that contributed to those three aspects of routine activities. And in a way, it could be interpreted as victim blaming by suggesting that, you know, if their behavior was different, they wouldn't have been a victim of a crime, which is, you know, I guess one limitation. And then additionally, the other limitation of routine activities is that it doesn't necessarily explain involvement in different types of crimes as well as others. So there are some types of crimes that might be explained well. For example, you know, theft, larceny, things like that. Some interpersonal crimes could be explained well, but different types of offenses, in particular drug use, is not necessarily as equally explained by routine activities, although, as I'm going to point out to you, in our next section, you have a homework assignment, since we're not having class today, that applies routine activities theory to the reading that was required. So this article that you are required to read, it's titled Situational Correlates of Adolescent Substance Use, an Improved Test of the Routine Activity Theory of Deviant Behavior. It's by Zhang et al., 2019. And so this one's kind of an interesting article because it's applying routine activities to substance use. And so you'll have a chance to obviously read that and then go through the results. But so for the activity that's in place of Monday's class is obviously for you to watch this video, but then for you to complete these questions and submit them for credit. So I will show you here momentarily where you'll go in OnCourse for this. So within OnCourse, in our criminology class, if you scroll down to week 8, so the questions that you need to complete that were on that slide on the Zhang et al. 2019 article are here. So if you click on that, and then it links to the reading, although it's also in the syllabus, but the reading is linked there. And then I just need you to submit your answers to the following questions. And your submission, you can either upload a document, or I think you can also put in a text box as well. So it's, in that sense, you can do whatever works for you. It's due by the end of the day on Monday. So instead of obviously doing it in class, I'm giving you the entire day to do it.